All right, let's dive into this. What we're doing today isn't just a history lesson, it's a full-on corporate autopsy. In this explainer, we're going to tear open the files on the world's biggest video rental empire to figure out exactly how a completely unstoppable industry titan was brought to its knees. I mean, we're talking about a company that absolutely dominated global entertainment, yet somehow managed to orchestrate its own spectacular downfall. So let's start the investigation. $8 billion. Just let the sheer suffocating weight of those zeros sink in for a second. That number isn't just some lost revenues spread out over a decade. It represents the catastrophic financial cost of a single, fatal decision made in the year 2000 by a room full of executives. They looked at tiny, struggling startups straight in the eye, laughed, and rejected them. And that rejection, it didn't just cost them money. It literally cost them their existence. Here is the investigation file for today. Chapter 1, The Empire of Movie Rentals. Chapter 2, The Netflix Threat Appears. Chapter 3, The Billion-Dollar Mistake. Chapter 4, Why the Empire Failed. And finally, Chapter 5, Lessons from a Fallen Giant. Chapter 1, The Empire of Movie Rentals, the Peak of Physical Media. For decades, Blockbuster completely dominated movie rentals, easily establishing itself as the undisputed world's largest video rental company. At their absolute height, they commanded over 9,000 stores worldwide. And you have to remember, they weren't just a business, they were a weekly ritual for millions of families. They controlled the real estate, they controlled the distribution, and they controlled our Friday nights. It was a true global empire, operating with total authority over the entertainment industry. They had everything. Their assets at their peak were just unmatched. We're talking about a massive base of tens of millions of insanely loyal customers and a globally recognized brand. These assets provided the ultimate opportunity to control the future of entertainment. They held all the cards. If they had just paid attention to how the game was changing, their future was entirely secure. But, as we know, the technological ground was shifting violently right beneath their feet. The clunky era of physical VHS tapes is what built the empire. Then came the shift to physical DVD shelves, a format change they actually managed pretty well. But that third phase, the digital streaming revolution, that was a completely new paradigm. This wasn't just swapping out a tape for a disc. It was a fundamental shift from physical retail spaces to massive digital networks. Chapter 2. The Netflix Threat Appears. The Blind Spot. Now, every great collapse has early warning signs, and there was a stark, terrifying contrast in Blockbuster's blind spot. On one side, you had Blockbuster clinging desperately to their old business model. They were fiercely protecting their physical store footprint and an incredibly lucrative revenue stream built almost entirely on punishing their customers with late fees. On the other side, a young startup named Netflix was laser-focused on the streaming revolution. One company was fighting to protect the past, while the other was building the infrastructure for the future. The market was screaming for a digital transformation, and Blockbuster just covered its ears. The crucial point here is understanding exactly what Blockbuster's leadership was ignoring. Digital transformation, in this context, is the necessary shift from physical entertainment media to digital streaming interfaces. It's a complete reinvention of how a product is delivered to the consumer. Blockbuster's leadership completely failed to grasp this concept. They thought they were in the physical retail business, when in reality, they were in the entertainment delivery business. Chapter 3. The Billion-Dollar Mistake. The decision that changed everything. Blockbuster had the brand, customers, and opportunity to control the future of entertainment. Just let the tragedy of that statement sink in for a minute. Imagine sitting in a boardroom holding the absolute future of a multi-billion-dollar global industry in the palm of your hand and just tossing it in the trash. Because that is exactly what they did. They rejected Netflix. In September of 2000, the startup's founders came to CEO John Antioco offering a partnership and a $50 million buyout. It was a direct, completely mapped out path into the digital future, and leadership literally laughed them out of the room. This wasn't just a minor misstep or a bad quarter, right? It was an $8 billion mistake that permanently altered the landscape of entertainment. It was a self-inflicted death sentence. Chapter 4. Why the Empire Failed. The Collapse. So the trigger was pulled, but what structural failures actually ensured their doom once the streaming revolution hit? Well, this complex corporate collapse really breaks down into 3 clear, fatal strategic errors. First, ignoring Netflix. Underestimating a hungry competitor is the original sin of business. Second, moving too slowly. Even when they finally realized digital was the future, the suffocating bureaucracy of their empire caused them to crawl while Netflix was sprinting. And third, and perhaps the deadliest, protecting the old business model. They were so addicted to the revenue of physical late fees that they couldn't bear to cannibalize their own business to save it. Ultimately, the world's largest video rental company failed to adapt when digital streaming transformed the industry. You just cannot fight the future. It doesn't matter how many thousands of abandoned video rental stores you have, or how many millions of fading VHS tapes are sitting on your shelves. Physical nostalgia was absolutely no match for the ruthless efficiency of digital networks. Chapter 5. Lessons from a Fallen Giant, the Postmortem. Okay, we've done the historical autopsy. Now let's extract the actionable business analysis. There are 3 essential takeaways from this explainer. Number 1, don't move too slowly. Agility is survival. Number 2, don't blindly protect an old business model. If you don't disrupt yourself, believe me, someone else will happily do it for you. And number 3, never, ever ignore disruptive technology. When the market shifts, your past successes mean absolutely nothing. Which brings us to the blueprint for survival. Step 1, recognize shifting tech immediately. Step 2, adapt the business model to fit the new reality, even if it hurts short-term profits. Step 3, embrace digital transformation over past successes. If Blockbuster's leadership had just followed these 3 steps, they would likely own the streaming landscape today. These aren't just steps on a screen. They're the survival guide for modern companies facing major industry shifts. So I want to leave you with a provocative question. Who is today's Blockbuster, and what massive technological threats are they ignoring right now? Look at the modern business world around you. There is absolutely an empire out there right now, sitting in a boardroom, laughing at a startup, completely blind to the fact that they are making their very own $8 billion mistake. Keep your eyes open and never stop adapting. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.